All right, hello, buddy, and welcome to Theorycraft Thursdays. I myself am Ursinity. My co-host here is Proud. Hello, Proud.
Hey.
We, of course, are everybody's favorite Lord of the Rings podcast. Today is a very special episode because Shadow of War just came out, and it has officially ruined all shadows. Lord of the Rings lore forever, and taken a lot of
over me.
It's taken a lot of liberties.
Shadows.
Shelob is now a hot woman instead of a crazy spider.
Shelob's now a sexy spider.
But the game's fun, so that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna go deeper into this, but then you started singing. I was just thrown completely off kilter.
This is the theme song of Shadows of War.
Yeah, that was the theme song for that game. If you watch the opening credits, it starts playing that.
Yeah. I highly recommend that game, by the way. If you enjoyed Shadow of Mordor, you will enjoy Shadow of War very much.
And the soundtrack.
Yeah, especially the soundtrack. Specifically, if you're a Theorycraft Thursday fan, you'll like the soundtrack. If you're not, then I don't know how you're listening to this, first off. This is one of those rare times where I wish I had just a gaming podcast so I could rant about microtransactions and how people are crazy.
Wait, you mean the opposite of rant?
Yeah, well, rant about people ranting about microtransactions.
Right, it's good to have that meta rant go on.
Yeah, well, yeah, because it's been on my mind recently, but Twitter is not enough for me to get it out.
You got to let people know.
Yeah, because I know
about the discourse.
One of my friends, I was playing the game yesterday because it came out yesterday, and my friend messaged me. He's like, "Oh, is it fun? I heard really bad things." And from our other friend, who's one of these super anti microtransaction people that refuses to play Destiny because there's shaders, and he's like, "Yeah." Our friend, who is nameless for no reason, there's no reason, he doesn't listen to this, but he was like, "Oh man, it's terrible, it's pay to win." And I was like, dude, literally, there's nothing you can get through microtransactions that you cannot get through the game already. You can get all the endings, you just have to play a little more as things happen. But
I'm actually kind of okay with that kind of stuff.
Me too.
Because I don't have time to do all that shit. What if I just want the game to be quick and then get all my fun out of it? Let me do that.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
But yeah, so my frustration has been seeing all these reviews that are really good, and then there's a few reviews that are "Oh man, it's terrible because there's microtransactions. I can't afford to pay $250." And it's well, then don't spend $250. You're not obligated to spend money on anything. You're an adult. You just spent $60 on a game. Clearly you have the expendable money to spend more if you want to. Well, anyway, that's been my current frustration.
I don't think that's a good point, but anyway.
That's probably not a good point, yeah. But regardless, it's been a very enjoyable game despite some reviewers' myopathy on the microtransaction issue. Anyway, we occasionally talk about Dota and not Lord of the Rings on this podcast. Let's do that this week, shall we?
Shadows of Dota.
Shadows of Dota. So, Proud. Over me. How has your microtransaction-filled week in Dota been? Ironically, actually, I did spend $70 in microtransaction fees in Dota this week.
Why do you? That's so much money.
Well, I spent $50 on the new Terrorblade set. That's why. And then I spent $20 to buy the 8 new chests.
Just give me that money and I'll give you something more fulfilling than a Terrorblade set.
There's nothing more fulfilling than that Terrorblade set, dude. That Terrorblade, the second I bought that set, I won a game. Not the second, but the game
but it didn't even
I
give
played.
You MMR.
Well, it was a party game anyway, so it wouldn't have given me MMR.
That's fair.
But I did go 15-0 in that game. Okay. Granted, it was in high skill, so whatever. But it was. Yeah, it's a great set. Anyway, I have a problem. Let's move on, though.
Yeah, I love moving on.
Yeah, so how's your week in Dota been, Proud?
My week's been pretty good, honestly. I had some very solid games, and then I had another day where I lost 3 in a row, 2 of which were intentional feeding / someone randoming and not knowing what they're doing and then dying repeatedly. And then lost another one it was more or less just like, oh, we just like, sometimes you lose games. But then I've been winning since then. It's been good. I just played a Monkey King game where I had like the perfect, like totally free lane situation. Like there was a Venomancer and we bullied them out. And then at some point I was like level 3 and he was level 2 and he was like, I can't deal with this monkey shit. So he just left and I had like 90 CS at 10 minutes or something and like 50 denies. And I was just, it was good. I got like a 14-minute Treads, Orb of Venom Battle Fury. It was a good life.
That sounds awesome. Yeah.
It was very, very good game. Carried the shit out of it. Very fun. Beyond that, just playing some Dota 2, man. I've gotten into a few very high MR games where I was just like, it's time to be Lich. I think I'm just gonna bow out of this one and just be Lich. And those games,
the answer to all questions.
Great. Yeah, like I would buy a salve and then like TP to salve my mid laner. I'm just like the fucking water boy. Like, here you go, man. You're doing great. And then I would just go back and sack a creep and fucking not do anything for the rest of the game. It was fun.
Yeah,
I like it was like super destitute supports, which I know you kind of like. But yeah, I had like tranquils, and then at 50 minutes, I managed to finish my force staff and shit. That was good. It was good.
Yeah, it's not about when you finish it, but it's about that you finished it eventually. Yes,
I agree. That, some Doom, some Ursa, some Bloodseekies, some Phantom Assassin. Played some Lone Druid recently. I only play Lone Druid when someone randoms it and I beg them to swap me, and that's happened twice this week. So anyway, that's been my week.
Yeah,
won those Druid games too. Fucking hard.
I'm glad.
Sucks.
I like, I feel like Lone Druid has that Reddit effect every once in a while where even when the hero's bad, occasionally, like we saw maybe like a week ago, you get one like Twitch clip of Eternal Envy doing something and people are like, oh man, that hero's so OP, he could backdoor so well. And it's like, well, he's always been able to do that. Yeah.
That's about all he does well.
It's like, it's like when Invoker used to be like way worse, people would still play him and you'd see like Attacker or like Black or Miracle play like a really mean Invoker and do a sick combo and people would be like, oh man, that's so OP. Like that hero's not OP. That person just did something that you found a 20-second clip of that was impressive and that's it. Or like they're in the perfect situation, right? But yeah, I feel like some heroes have that effect more than others and Lone Druid definitely falls victim to that. I would say more than some other heroes.
Yeah. What about you, buddy?
Let's see. So my week in Dota has been weird. In my kind of exasperation or rather boredom with the patch, I decided to invest my time into climbing my Smurf so that I can use it as a practice account, which has been something of a slog that has taken months. Or I shouldn't say it's taken months, but over the course of months, it's been something that's been on my mind. Like I wish I had a practice account. Yeah. But now with a calibration cap of 3,500, I can't even just recalibrate a new account. I have to manually climb this one. So I have been just casually playing games on that. And mostly I've been playing support. I'm not trying to. I have very mixed feelings. I think I've probably talked about this on the show before, but I have very mixed feelings about playing on this account and smurfing in general. And I don't like smurfing, but at the same time I want to have a practice account, so it's got to happen. Purposely I've been trying not to play mids or safe laners in these games, and I've just been kind of playing whatever the team needs. And occasionally the team does not pick a mid, and then I'll just play a mid, and the games are very easy. Other times though, mostly I've been playing Winter Wyvern and the occasional 4, usually Winter Wyvern though. And it's been fun. It's been educational in the sense that I've been noticing a lot of mistakes that I would not have thought of, or I've been noticing, we always say that different brackets have different problems, right? Where people, there's a reason why once you hit like the 4,500 bracket, you're not suddenly winning 60% of your games because all your teammates are better, right? You're still winning, ballpark 50% of your games. The people are just like better and worse in different degrees, right? So famously, like once you break 4K, people get a lot more toxic. But when you're below 4K, like let's say in the 3K, I've been noticing way more junglers. That's like the most obvious example of just outwardly bad play. Like I think I've won out of my last like 10 ranked games. The only one I've lost was a game where we had a jungler. Let's see what it was. I think it was a jungle LC, of course.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things that I feel like everybody knows is objectively bad. Oh, no, it was a jungle troll, which is even worse than a jungle LC. I actually won a game, and my teammates got carried by a jungle LC recently. But jungling is the first big thing I noticed that is just like objectively bad that I would like. I mean, I can't really help that, right? It's not educational, like, because specifically I've been learning a lot in terms of coaching, because we do a lot of coaching, and of course, and most of our listeners are probably in that 2K and 3K range. So it's been educational to see like what kind of problems they have that I would not have thought of otherwise. One of the other big ones is, and easily the biggest one I would say, is not buying small items. I think that is probably the most grotesque aspect of lower MMRs. That is just, it's a very easy problem to fix, I think is the way I would phrase it.
It's a problem that's more just about like knowing to do something, and it's not like knowing how to do something in a pinch. It's like, you know that you're going to do this ahead of time, and then you just do it. It's very simple. Yeah,
it's not like, oh man, I missed a CS. It's like, well,
there's no execution error. It's not a mechanical thing to do, and it's not a high theory thing to do. It's just yes or no.
Yeah, it's just, did I click the button to buy this item at the right time? No, I didn't. So now it's like for instance, I had a game with a Jug on my team that, among other problems, he started the game and said, I'm going to do magic damage Jug. And everybody on my team was like, hey, we were very polite, surprisingly. We were like, hey, please don't do that. And then he was like, trust me, it'll be fine. But at like 10 minutes, he had phase boots, 1 stout shield, and a ring of Aquila. And it was like, well, like, you could have had a quelling blade, you could have had a TP, you could have had clarities, you could have had a raindrop. Like, he just had open slots. And it's like, there's literally no point in having open slots. Like, there's so many cheap items nowadays that you can buy.
Wand.
Wand, Orb of Venom. Like, we're talking. We're talking in Discord today. We're
Orb of Venom even does magic damage. What an idiot.
Yeah. Orb of Venom is OP, dude. It's so good.
It's very good.
So that's been another big thing that I've been noticing. We notice this a lot, like casting in-houses is just, we're cast a lot more lobby. It's not necessarily that people are mechanically playing worse. It's a lot of times it's just people don't have things. Like, they just have open slots. Like, why don't you have an Orb of Venom? Why don't you have a Blightstone? Like, you just have empty space, right? So that's been another really big thing. And so it's been fun. I mean, I have played a handful of games on my regular account that have been fine. Mostly just I played a Terrorblade game and I played an Invoker game. Other than that, though, it's mostly just been playing Winter Wyvern in pubs. That said, that's going to transition us into our segment for this week.
Oh boy.
Which is specifically going to be on carrying pubs as a support, because it is, I would say, maybe the most common misconception that you cannot carry, or it's harder to carry a game as a support. My point that I've made, probably a dozen times on this show and other shows has always been that if you are inordinately better than people on your team, you will carry games faster as a mid laner or a safe laner. But if you are ballpark in your right MMR bracket, it's perfectly easy and perfectly viable to carry games as a support. But people get really downtrodden when they play support too much, and they say, oh, I just can't carry these games, because some games are uncarryable as a support. Similarly, some games are uncarryable as, any hero. But I wanted to talk about carrying as a support, and specifically as a 5, I think I'd go into that first. My mentality in these games where, like I said, I'm just desperate. I want to get out of this bracket as fast as possible. So I've just been playing Winter Wyvern or Rubik. Mostly Winter Wyvern, though, just because I have the most fun on that hero, on top of it just being a good pub carry hero. In general, and also just one of my best heroes, on top of that. Winter Wyvern, my general prerogative for carrying games as a support 5-position Winter Wyvern is not about being necessarily any more greedy than usual. I know I give that advice frequently, is to be a little more greedy. It's more about mentality, approaching the game and approaching how I'm going to treat all my different lanes and whatnot. When I'm trying to carry a game as a support, my goal is to win as many lanes as possible, right? If you're playing a mid, let's say, you can really only win mid, right? Unless you are playing puck, let's say, and you rotate, maybe you can help out other lanes.
You get a haste rune or something at the 4-minute mark or some shit like that.
But even then, you're making a momentary, you're momentarily helping another lane, but you're not really carrying an allied lane. On the other hand, if you're playing, a 4 or a 5, especially if you're playing a 4, but also very much so if you're playing a 5, you can very easily just, you come to lane, immediately buy a TP or show up to lane with a TP. You can, using Winter Wyvern as an example, I use my first Arctic Burn to zone the off laner and bring him really low. If he or she only brought one set of tangos to lane, they're basically ruined. Like, I've already, my lane is super easy for my carry. If they brought extra, then, at the very least, I've wasted their salve, let's say. Sometimes you kill them, especially if you have 3 people in that lane, which is rare because you only have a jungler or a 4 that's in mid or something. And then I say, all right, I'm going to wait. What is it? I forget the exact cooldown of Arctic Burn level 1, but I'm going to wait, let's say, a minute. Then I will pull my lane to put Equilibrium in an advantage position for my safe laner if I need to. If not, I just TP to another lane and react to the enemy team ganking one of my, let's say, my off laner or my mid laner. Or I say, all right, my mid laner has good kill potential. I run over to mid lane, and at the very least, I am going to be able to Arctic Burn and get this mid laner out of lane. They probably don't have bottle yet. They may have their salve, but at this MMR, most people are not ferrying out salves, which makes life really easy. And if they do, I just snipe the courier, and then life is even easier. I played a Ricky game on this account, and I sniped courier, I want to say 3 times in the first 10 minutes. Like, every time it respawned, I knew, all right, it's going to be coming down mid. They have a jungler. There's no way they're upgrading this courier. And I killed it. It might have just been 2 times in the first 10 minutes. Regardless, it was super easy.
Might as well have been.
Yeah, and it just, they had a really good puck on their team, and the puck was absolutely winning mid, and then he didn't get his bottle on time, and then he didn't win mid anymore. He has no kill potential because he has no mana. So that made, that's one of the very easy things you could do as a 4, is, very least, it's 2 minutes, I can just sit here and wait, and they're going to use the courier and get a bottle, or, right away, they're going to be getting a salve in a lot of games as well. So again, the priority is just winning as many lanes as possible, right? And you can do this through any different combination of moves. Sometimes you do this just through placing good wards, right? If you say they have a Spirit Breaker and your mid is an Invoker, he's very susceptible to ganks. Their mid is like a sniper, let's say. You want to place some wards, say, all right, Spirit Breaker is generally roaming towards this or from this direction, so you place some aggressive wards. Then, you save your Invoker. If they actually get in on Invoker, you just TP there. Bam, you're fine. They've expended a bunch of resources trying to kill your Invoker, and you've come out, with, having to use your Shrine, I guess. The things that I've been avoiding doing when I try to carry as a support, the biggest one that I avoid is generally picking really team-dependent supports. So, I would not necessarily play Coddle if I am trying to win a game or carry a team as a support. Coddle is an excellent hero. Coddle is incredibly strong and doesn't require a ton of coordination to be good. But if you are a Coddle, you're gonna have problems doing that early game rotation. First of all, you're pretty stationary in terms of laning. You can do a lot to the enemy offlaner, but you're not really going to be moving from lane to lane to lane. So if you are playing a hero like a Rubik or like a Lion or like a Winter Wyvern or a Shadow Shaman especially, you can be doing this thing like triage, moving from lane to lane to lane, making things happen, forcing action. The other big thing that I'm looking out for when I am trying to focus on really hardcore rotating a team around as a support, it's not necessarily being communicative over microphone or over text. It's more about being communicative via pings, and that's been more than enough, honestly. If I ping the mid laner, the enemy mid laner, my mid laner knows, hey, I'm coming to kill this person. And if it doesn't pan out, it doesn't pan out, whatever. But I have just been trying to coordinate my team and say, all right, I'm moving here. Let's get stuff done. And if stuff doesn't happen, whatever, that's just a failed rotation. It's not a big deal. That has made another big difference. Just pinging, hey, we're going to push this tower. Hey, we're going to gank this offlaner. Hey, we're going to do this. I don't need to over communicate. Just pings are enough. It doesn't matter what language anybody speaks. It just matters that, they see a ping, they hear a noise, and they say, all right, let's kill this guy. Yeah, let's see. Proud, what would you say are some of the common problems that people have when they're supporting in pubs, just as a general statement?
Not having TPs early is a big one. And mostly just having no fucking idea when to pull and when not to.
Yeah, that's a big one.
like what the common timings of certain periods of aggression are and where wards need to be to respond to them. For instance, literally every game I play now, I buy a ward and I try to get it to me at 6 minutes, because every fucking game I play, the safe lane gets ganked somewhere between 6 and 8 minutes. There's the second half of the first night. Always the safe lane gets ganked every time. They secure the safe lane, then they rotate, and then the enemy like reclaims the safe lane and they kill your safe lane. It happens every fucking game, but there's never a ward to spot it out. So I buy my own fucking ward.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, some heroes have very obvious timings, right? Like Night Stalker, it's like, all right, it's 4 minutes, he's going to rotate mid, he's going to try to kill my mid laner. Oh, it's 5 minutes, he's going to do a similar thing. But offlaners, they have a big timing as well, and it's a little less definite, but that range between, the latter part of the laning phase, that's when they're going to be hitting 6 ballpark. Sometimes it's at 7 minutes, other times it's at 9 minutes. But that's when the enemy team is going to say, all right, we have ult on, we have Chronosphere, we have Ravage, we have, whatever, we have Bat Rider Lasso, etc. That's when, you as a support or as a core in some cases should be saying, all right, I need to be very careful now. And as a support, you can do the preventative measures and say, all right, I'm going to put a ward on, let's see, the Radiant Spire by their tier 2 top or tier 1 top. Or, I'm playing Dire, I'm playing Radiant, I'm going to put a ward by the Dire offlane tier 1. Stuff like that. You can make adequate preventative measures for those specific timings, right? Another thing you'll see frequently is people doing timing pushes or timing ganks based on when enemy wards are commonly failing, right? If you are, let's say, playing, using Night Stalker as the continued example, if you gank at 5 minutes or 5:30, let's say, odds are their ward protecting their mid laner has recently faded, but has not faded long ago enough for the enemy safe lane, for the enemy support to reward in a protective position, right? Because they're going to be busy. Let's say they're trying to zone the off laner, what have you. So that's another big timing thing, right? And so you need to be aware of that both as the aggressive support, as like the aggressive 4, and as the defensive 4, and saying, all right, my ward's about to fade. It's 5 minutes. They're going to be ganking because it's nighttime. So let's put out new wards, let's shore up things, and make sure everybody's down for success. We talk a lot about on the show bad pulls versus good pulls. Do you want to go a little bit into that and just what makes a bad pull versus what makes a good pull and like the common timings?
Yeah, so I mean, the only reason to pull is, I guess there are 2. 1, to fix the lane equilibrium, and 2, just if you're a support and you need more experience or your gold and that sort of thing, which is totally valid. But if you just pull out of nowhere and your carry is not prepared for it, they may end up under tower and they'll probably lose, 1 or 2 CS, especially more if the lower skill they are, especially if they're not prepared for it, right? Like, if I know my support is going to pull and I'm a melee hero, like within the first wave, like let's say that the enemy offlane blocks well and their range creep is in front and my range creep isn't, so we kill their range creep real fast and then I know for a fact the lane is going to push up. With my first bit of gold, maybe I won't finish my poor man's shield, I'll buy a quelling blade because I know I'm going to be under tower like in a minute and I won't be able to get back to the shop to like buy a stout shield or buy a quelling blade in the middle of, trying to last out under tower and shit. So if like the carry needs to be aware if it's going to happen early, and as long as the carry is aware, it should be mostly okay. But the lane like needs to be pushed up when you do it. Otherwise, there's the risk of enemy creeps like piling up too much, and then you have a shit ton under the tower, and then there's a bunch of like really weird math on whether or not the next enemy wave that comes, whether it's still going to be like under your tower, and then your lane will just push really far forward and you'll need another pull, but you just killed the previous camp and it's all a fucking big clusterfuck. So really, like the only time it's really safe to pull is when the equilibrium is more or less like in front of the enemy tower. If you do it any other time besides that, there's a decent chance you end up getting like 2 waves under tower in a row, and then you just end up pushing up again, and it's a fucking disaster.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the most common problem, I would say, both as a observer to supports doing this and as a safe lane core, is when I'm like, let's say like a level 1 drow, or a level 2 drow, and I only deal what does she deal at level 2? Probably like 50,
55.
yeah, something like that. Then my support makes a bad pull. Let's say they single pull or they double pull, and because they want to get their level 2 or whatever, and suddenly I'm under tower. And not only am I under tower, I cannot last hit right now, right? If it was like 5 minutes from now, I would be able to last hit, right? I'd be able to figure my way out of the situation. But now, not only is it messing up my creep equilibrium, but on top of that, it's very difficult, nigh impossible for me to get all these last hits, right? Like. You'll be able to get a few of them, but just purely through virtue of attack speed and your like turn rate and all that. Realistically, you're not going to be able to get.
I mean, it's honestly like literally impossible to get all CS under tower without taking a good amount of damage on Drow at level 1 or 2. I had the same issue with Clinks and Arc Warden. Like, they have terrible attack speed and not high damage. Clinks has searing arrows, but his attack speed is fucking horrendous. Anyway,
Yeah, absolutely. One of the other, I feel like one of the more common ways I see supports mess up pulling is, I shouldn't say more common, because the most common by far is just single pulling, like period.
Well, yeah.
Point blank, people single pull, and that's just bad. Even single pulling the hard camp, a lot of times will also screw you up.
100% of the time.
100%. Well, if you have...
The big troll creeps sometimes can kill the camp on its own, but that's, it's uncommon.
If you're aggressively denying, is aggressive even the right term for that? If you're denying creeps right when you can usually get away with the single pull of the big trolls. But yeah, other than the big trolls and the big troll and the, the satyr.
Hellbearer?
Yeah.
Satyr? I don't know. I'm pretty sure the satyrs get wrecked.
Yeah, they do, but if you aggressively deny, I think you can passively figure your way out of the satyrs. I could be wrong. It might depend if they Hadouken or not. Anyway, regardless, single pulling is generally bad, and that's a very common way that people mess up pulls. But the other big one is people say, we're like, my Tower Blade says, all right, I want to push. I've met up. And then the support says, oh, great, I'll single pull, and then we'll push. And theoretically, that is a legitimate thing that people do is say, all right, I want to push, so it's right before the catapult wave, so I am going to do a single pull, and then we'll stack up creeps and everything will be fine. But more often than not, they mess that up, and then you have an even more awkward creep wave. So let's see. Man,
there was one other thing I just thought of about pulling, and I just got lost in your beautiful voice.
Yeah, pulling a lot of.
Oh yeah, stop pulling the hard camp, dude! Like Jesus Christ, there's a small camp there for a reason. Every fucking time someone pulls the hard camp and I'm under tower, and then the offlaner's like, oh, I guess I'll just kill these creeps and then like finish off the like one of the big neutrals as well. And then my Rubik is sitting there like, oh, can you help me? I can't fight this Abaddon. And I'm like, I know, that's why there's a small camp, dude. Like, what are you doing here? Yeah. Stop pulling the fucking hard camp every time. The small camp is there, and it's safe and good. Do that one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is the really important point. Both, especially if you're playing off lane, if you notice the enemy team is making pulls from their safe lane to the hard camp, those are the easiest things to invade in the entire world. Even as a 4-position support, if I'm like a Spirit Breaker and I see, the enemy team is trying to, like if I happen to be in the area, if I can't do anything mid and safe lane, let's say, I can just invade that, and at the very least, you're going to get XP. But it's incredibly, incredibly easy to just pick off like even a couple creeps from that whole situation. Doubly so, it lets you gain information, right? If you see, they have a stack, they have like a 3 stack of that, and yeah, sure, you're not going to kill anything. Then you can tell, hey, like Invoker, come over here and meatball this, and we're going to kill it. Like I'm playing Magnus, my teammate's playing Invoker. Let's just kill this entire creep wave. That makes a really big difference too. So yeah, don't pull hard camp. The only exception is if you have really shut down the enemy offlaner and they can't invade, like if you're tri-laning them, then it's a little safer. Or if you have a carry like a Sven, it's not necessarily too dangerous because you have the stun if the enemy's offlaner tries to invade.
The Sven's under the tower, so it doesn't matter.
Well, you can, if the Sven could just tank the creep wave and fight the creep wave. I mean, it depends on the timing, of course.
Then the Sven is under the tower. Like, you can't both protect the camp and be under the tower. They're in different locations.
I mean, like, all right, so if your creep equilibrium is past, like, let's say we're playing Dire, right? our creep equilibrium, you know that triangle of trees that is between the lane and between the hard camp? If my Sven has creeps, let's say, at the far part of those trees.
You mean just tank the creep wave like in front of the tower or whatever?
Yeah.
Or not in front, but just tank it away from the tower and just kill the wave.
Yeah, and so you use Warcry, you kill the wave, and then I, as a support, pull the hard camp up and stack it, and then you've killed that creep wave. Then you can divert attention and then kill the large camp, or the large camp just like decimates. Yeah. I shouldn't use that word. Just kills your creep wave. I think that's like a one aspect where it's passable, but it's still not advisable.
Yeah, that's definitely not advisable, because if the Sven walks across those trees to help at all and you don't get a kill, then the Sven's wave is just going to start attacking your wave, and then after your wave is done, then you basically just pulled the dire creeps, which is, I mean, if you can get all the last hits, it's fine, but it's still just more complication than you're looking to have in a safe lane.
Yeah, it is. I would say it's very easy to pull the safe lane small camp, whereas the hard camp has a lot of weird nuances to it, where it's sometimes it's good and other times it's bad, but when it's good, it's very specific situations. So in general, if you are looking to pull and looking to reset things, just stack the small camp or do a pull through, and then it is what it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, any other big things that are common support problems? I mean, as much as we started this segment by carrying as a support, I guess since I mostly went over playing as 5 and making rotations, one of the common ways when I'm approaching the game winning as a 4, if you're a hero that can snipe couriers, go for it, like a Ricky or a bounty hunter. Or a treant protector, or even if you have good sense of timing, you can do it as you can buy a smoke and smoke as a spirit breaker and just sit there, or smoke as any other hero. When I'm playing 4 and I'm trying to carry a game, my priority is usually to assess my kill potential and when I have kill potential in lanes, right? If it's a mid invoker, I know I don't have kill potential until the mid invoker is at least level 3 or 4 if it's a teammate invoker, because he needs to have spells. Whereas if it's a mid lane, let's see, what mid laner has kill potential level 1? Maybe even a Quap. Yeah, that was what I was thinking.
Definitely.
Puck for sure. So if you're one of those, right, you can rotate immediately and say, all right, we're going to put immediate pressure on this opponent. Alternatively, even if you don't have kill potential, if the enemy mid laner is zonable, let's say the enemy mid laner is a Quap and you're playing Nyx Assassin 4 like we're going to do on the show. Even if I don't have kill potential on a Quap, I can still just go over to that mid lane and just mana burn over the course of a minute and try not to take experience, of course. And then, you use your 3 mana burns, then you pop a clarity, then you go get their rune, you go get your rune, you're level 2, and then you gank your safe lane, let's say. Or you're playing Ogre and you just throw a couple ignites or ignite? What's the dot?
Yes, ignite.
Ignite. Okay, that's what I thought. What's the other one called? Fire Blast?
Yes, you got it.
You just throw a couple ignites and just hassle the enemy mid laner. And that, in a lot of cases, will just win your mid lane for your mid laner, regardless of skill. It's just like what I was saying on the other week on Teach Me Tuesday. If one mid laner doesn't have a bottle and one does, the skill difference does not matter that much in terms of player skill. It's just one guy has the ability to use his abilities and one does not. Therefore, the one that can use his abilities or her abilities wins. It's just that simple. So if you have dedicated, a minute and a half to zoning the enemy mid laner, even if you haven't gotten a kill, they have no tangos, your mid laner has tangos, your mid laner can front on the enemy mid laner, and everything is safe. You're all good. So that's one of the biggest steps to carrying a game as a 4. After that, it's just similarly, I would give the similar advice to just rotate a lot, right? Also,
I mean, my advice for playing 4 is don't do what every fucking 4 does and pretend the safe lane doesn't exist.
Yes, that's another big one, especially if they're aggroing your safe lane. That's tip number 1.
If there was the reason that roamers exist is because offlaners started playing in a way that there was just no kill to be had in the offlane because there was no hero there. If there was a hero there to kill, your roamer should do that. I mean, mid is very important now, but the way that the world, the fucking platonic idea of a good round of Dota does not necessarily mean that the The platonic idea of a good Dota game is the offlaner is zoned, my mid wins their 1v1, and my offlaner comes out okay. It's not my mid has two people in their lane and there's no confusion or no issues and everything goes perfectly, and then my safe lane, like zones and kills the offlaner, 2v1 perfectly. Like, that's not guaranteed to happen. If you throw another body in the mid lane, it may work out great for you, or you may not really help that much at all, and you do some harass, but you also steal some experience. Like, don't fucking ignore the safe lane. Like, your hero was originally designed to kill the offlaner. If there's no offlaner, then fulfill your new purpose of also winning mid. But if there is, that's you. That's what you should do. Like, don't ignore your original programming for this new life you found for yourself. You still have to obey the fucking laws of robotics.
Absolutely. All right. I'm sure there's something we missed, but let us know and we'll talk about it another time. So let's talk a bit about the heroes that we're actually going to be playing today, shall we? Fine. All right. So I'm going to be playing Nyx Assassin. I have a ton of Nyx Assassin games. Let me see.
Hell yeah. Yeah, he's one of your, I'd say top 5 played guys.
Yeah. I actually don't know because I haven't played him that much recently. He is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's my 7th most played hero. I have actually only 95 games, but I have a 62% win rate.
I mean, that's a good amount.
Yeah, it's a good amount. It's not quite as much as I would have thought. I used to play him way more than I currently do. I also used to play him mid a lot, which is not a advisable thing to do, especially anymore.
Well, not anymore, no.
Yeah, even before, it was not an advisable thing to do.
It was okay.
It was better than it is now, but yeah, it's still not great. Nyx Assassin, though, I just personally like the hero a lot, and he's a really good counter pick. And it just so happens that at the moment, he is an incredibly strong hero in the first place. And on top of that, he is also a counter pick to a lot of common meta heroes, right? Mana Burn is one of the most obvious counter picks, I would say, in the game, just in terms of, or one of those obvious counters in the game, and just in terms of, oh, they have a hero that has a lot of intelligence, I deal a lot of damage suddenly. Like, it's just that simple and one-dimensional, right? Yep. Oh, they don't have int heroes? Okay, Mana Burn's not very good. They do have int heroes? Great, perfect. So that's one of the big reasons why Nyx is super strong at the moment. He is played both as a 3 and a 4. He really excels in the 4 position, though, I would say. Just because 3 position Nyx Assassin, you have a ton of regen, and you're able to get even more regen just through virtue of starting the game with, I think you can start the game with
6 mangoes.
Yeah, well, yeah, 6 mangoes, or you could do Stout Shield, 3 mangoes, and a set of tangos, and just show up to lane, and you have, I think, 7 passive regen with that, I want to say, which is almost a full tango.
Poor Man's Shield, 2 mangoes, and a tango, and you're pretty set.
You can't afford that.
You're right, you can't.
Yeah, unless you randomed. If you randomed, you could afford that.
Yeah, no, I was like, Poor Man's Shield is 300 gold. No,
you're thinking of Stout Shield. Yeah.
No, I'm thinking of you buy 2 slippers for 300 gold.
Oh, okay, yes, that's fine. But yeah, so you can start the game with an absurd amount of regen, kind of like Ogre Magi. Like, if you really wanted to, you could start a game with, just a boatload of regen. Nyx just has a super high passive regen, and on top of that, you're able to get a bunch of mangoes. Offlane Nyx, though, it's pretty easy to zone. Like, regardless of all your regen, it's just kind of, it doesn't do what a lot of other offlaners do. That being said, if you need it, it's a fine position. That being said, I just use
it does. It has an AoE stun. It starts fights, and it has a defensive tool. I mean, Nyx is a fine offlaner. It's just that it doesn't
Yeah, I suppose
it starts fights a bit more flimsily than most other offlaners.
Yeah, and I suppose
he's close. He's just not there.
Yeah, I suppose what I would probably phrase it as is that he's a good offlaner, but he's also a good 4, and a lot of other good offlaners cannot be played as 4s, right?
They're also better than him in general.
Yeah,
as an offlaner.
If you want to have, if you want to pick a Nyx, you can pick him as a 3 or a 4, but if you want to pick a Magnus, you can only pick him as a 3 or in a pinch at 2.
Right.
Or if you want to pick a Centaur, you can't run a 4 Centaur easily. You can't run a 4, but that's other stuff.
That's not a reason to not run Nyx as a 3. That's just
that's what I'm saying. That's just a reason why Nyx gets run as a 4, because you can pick him and addition an offlaner. Whereas if you want to pick only an offlaner, or if you want to pick a different hero, you're stuck with them in the offlane. if that makes sense. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, there's just not, the connection is just, it's not like, I mean, these are facts. It's just not an interesting point. Like he's run as a 4 because he's good at it. That's kind of just what you're saying. But he's also good at an off lane, but there's no real connection between the two. They're just facts.
Well, there's a connection between the two because other heroes are good offlaners and not good 4s, whereas Nyx is good at both.
Well, yes, that's just another fact, man.
Yeah,
Magnus isn't picked as a 4 because he's not good at it. Yeah, I know that. Nyx is picked as a 4 because he is. Great.
Okay, all right. I don't want to delve deeper into this.
Some heroes are good at multiple positions. Some aren't. Okay.
Yes. But
thanks for the fucking lesson.
It's an important facet of the hero and the dynamic between the roles that he can play. Is that if you first phase a Nyx, or if you first pick a Nyx, you can run it in either thing. But if you first pick a Magnus, you cannot run it as a 4, right?
One reason to pick him early is that he's flexible. But I think that's just all you need to say about it.
Okay, it's an asset to the hero that he is flexible and can be played in multiple positions.
Sure.
Okay, all right.
Just out here saying facts.
So as a 4, there's generally 2 mentalities that you go about. You either start with Impale and go for kill potential, or you start with Mana Burn and you just bother the enemy mid laner.
Hey, same word.
Yeah, you're never going to kill them realistically with this build, but you will just bother them into oblivion. And I feel like Mana Burn can be kind of deceptive early game because you Mana Burn somebody and you see it's 70 mana. That's not a lot of damage. That's not a lot of mana, whatever. But as everybody that's ever played Dota knows, the difference between 70 mana when you're playing the hero that's suddenly missing 70 mana is all the difference in the world, right? If you are playing Quap, that's maybe not a full dagger, but it's the equivalent of a full dagger you're missing, right?
Yeah, most heroes, they itemize to have as much mana as they need, right? Like having additional mana that you don't use doesn't net you anything. So most heroes, you get as much mana as you need. And if you get your mana burned, guess what? You don't have the mana you thought you did, and you fucking can't do shit, and then you die.
Yeah, and especially with a lot of these mid laners that are very spam focused or they're very trade focused. Like Necrophos and Quap, right? If a Quap and a Necro are trading and the Quap suddenly has very little mana because she's getting mana burned and the Necrophos has all the mana in the world, the Necrophos is going to have that much more of an edge on the Quap who theoretically has a decent advantage over him in the matchup, right?
Sure.
So a few mana burns makes a world of difference. And mid lane is so finicky and so slapdash in terms of how advantages are built. You can, if you lose 1 minute of the mid lane, your mid lane is lost fully. Whereas if you mess up 1 minute of the safe lane, you can usually recoup that minute and just farm a bit more efficiently elsewhere. Because it's not as much of a 1v1 dynamic.
Sure.
So yeah, those are the 2 general ways that I play Nyx. And essentially the only way to decide that is to say, do I have kill potential if I go Impale? If I don't have kill potential, I'm just going to go hassle the enemy mid laner. And if the enemy mid laner is not an int hero, it's an enemy mid DK, don't bother with that. Yeah, Viper.
Maybe just, you're fine.
Yeah.
Don't bother.
So yeah, and one of the other reasons you should think about Nyx is just as a counter pick to heroes with a lot of AoE. One of the most common counter picks of Nyx is you counter pick a Bat Rider with a Nyx. Because they lasso somebody, they have flame break up, your Nyx just walks into the fire and suddenly the Bat Rider is stunned for seconds at a time.
Firefly, not flame break.
Firefly, yes. Similarly, Pugna is pretty popular, and Nyx is really good against Pugna. A, because Pugna is a high-end hero, but B, because if a Pugna is slow sieging your tower and you want to engage on the Pugna, it's not a direct initiation, but it's like a pseudo-initiation to say, all right, next time Pugna is going to try to nuke our tower, I'm going to run into it, he's going to take a bunch of damage from it, and he's going to get stunned for 2 seconds. Then you guys can jump on him and kill him right away.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty, because you can activate Carapace while you're in stealth, right? So you can just run up to it and then you just set up your own blink stun.
Yeah, that's actually a better point. Actually, you can do that from invis and be in range already.
Yeah,
I was thinking more of I mean, it doesn't really matter the specific situation, but you can go either way. In that either you can be a bit more forward and have the invis running and use Carapace while invis because it doesn't break invis. Or you can be behind and then either blink in Carapace or just walk in Carapace, depending on the situation and the ability. So yeah, it leaves you multiple ways to surprise stun a hero, right? People don't expect to get Spike Carapace stunned usually. Like it's almost always a surprise. And of course it reflects damage also, which depending on the ability actually makes a real big difference.
Ember Spirit too, when he has Flame Guard up, you can Carapace, and if he has a Lincoln's or a Yule's or something, you can't Yule's or Lincoln's out of that stun coming at you. Alchemist, any hero that builds Radiance, there's like a good number of heroes that have AoE that they can't turn off, and you can just stun them through that. Even Sven with Cleave and that sort of thing. A lot of ways that you can actually turn Nyx into a hero that can like stun lock someone for a good amount of seconds. I don't actually know the exact numbers. Let's see, 2.8 plus 2.4. Yeah, so that's 5.2. Yeah.
Why are you? Oh, okay. You were adding Impale. I was like, where is the 2.8 coming from? Yeah.
That's Impale and Carapace. Yeah. So if you start someone out with a Carapace for some AoE that they can't avoid putting out there, and then you get that good old Impale out. It's good life.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Impale is a bit easy to dodge, but like Brad was saying, if you Carapace somebody, like a Quap that's about to scream a wave, Carapace them first, and then there's no way you're going to miss her Impale, because, she can't avoid it when she's stunned.
Love that.
Okay, so let's go a little bit over Nyx Assassin's ability builds and his item builds before we go over into your hero.
Okay.
So, ability-wise, what you're going to want to do is generally you want to have one in everything at level 3. Otherwise, if you don't want to have Impale, or if it's just a really bad game for mana burn, like earlier, like we were saying, like they have a mid Viper, mid DK or something, don't bother with mana burn. You can go Impale, Carapace, Impale. Otherwise, in a lot of games, I would commonly want to have like 1-1-1 at 3. You're maxing Impale first, and again, depending on the game, usually, almost always actually, maybe not almost always, usually I would max Carapace second, but mana burn's also good to max second. You really have to feel it out depending on the game. Carapace, like it goes from a 0.6 stun to a 2.4 stun, right? So it has very linear scaling, and it goes from being usable basically once in a fight to being usable multiple times in a fight, because the cooldown goes all the way down from 25 to 10.
Yeah.
At the same time, mana burn also has an incredibly restrictive cooldown at low levels. It goes from 28 down to 4-second cooldown. So you really have to feel it out. In general, I find that in the early game, I'm not going to have enough mana, even with mana boots, to be using multiple mana burns in a fight. So I'm not too worried about maxing mana burn second. You can even level it evenly.
I feel like with mana burn, like the way that Carapace scales, like you said, is pretty like linearly, but mana burn, like even 3 points for it, like the difference between a 12-second cooldown and a 4-second cooldown, it's like 3 times as good, provided you have mana for it. Plus, it also scales as far as the intelligence multiplier on the damage / burn that it does. So, like, I don't know, I'd even maybe say the 4th point is 4 times as good as the 3rd one or some shit like that. Yeah. So, if you were gonna like feel it out and kind of get them a little evenly or something like that, I think probably the best way to do it is just level Carapace up until you're ready to full commit to maxing mana burn. Like, I wouldn't go, like 2, 3, and then 3 back in mana burn, and then finish Carapace, and then be like, no, like, as soon as you're putting extra points in mana burn, like, see it through. Because once you get that 4-second cooldown, it's wild good. But before then, it's, kind of whatever.
Yeah, and it is one of those abilities, kind of like anything percentage-based, where its scaling is directly relative to the enemy's items. So if you have, max mana burn at, a minute 10 somehow, you don't really do that much different damage-wise. You're not really doing that much different damage compared to level 1 mana burn. Whereas Spike Carapace is a very linear, you're stunning them for longer. But higher levels of mana burn makes a real difference later game when people just have more intelligence, right? So they've seen a 5 times multiplier and a 3.5 times is pretty minimal in the early game when people only have 50 intelligence, but it's huge in the late game when they have 80 intelligence, right?
Sure.
So and itemization is pretty standard. You're just building a bunch of mobility, and then you build Aghanim Scepter. His Aghanim Scepter is one of the best Aghanims in the game. You can build Midas if you can swing it, because he's pretty level dependent, and he does not have a farm mechanic otherwise. But you really have to kind of, again, feel it out and say, am I going to be able to reasonably build a Midas? Some people will build Midas after their first mobility item if they see a game is potentially going to go long, because he really doesn't need much after that first mobility item, if that makes sense. And also Urn is super good on him if you can swing it. But I wouldn't necessarily say it's a requirement, but Urn is just a really good item, and it turns out, if you're
as
a 4
Nyx, I would like maybe almost always want it. Just this is probably not going to be someone else who's going to be getting it, and there are very few healing 5s anymore. And as far as healing, there's Necrophos is the 2, and
Dazzle,
then Juggernaut as the 1. But Dazzle's that's like the healing 5. I'm saying like besides your 5 position, there's like kind of 2 other core healers or whatever. So it's it's good if you don't have a Dazzle or some shit. It's good to have someone on your team that can make it so you're actually ready to push after a team fight and not just fucking like, oh, I have 20 health, guess we can't push.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that it does not count your Urn of Shadows healing in your damage in your healing at the end of the game, because I had a Kunkka game where I probably used 30 Urn charges in that game. Like I had an absurd amount of kills and assists, and I was just picking up Urn charges and using them constantly. And I was like really excited to learn, like, oh man, how much did I heal? And I was like 0. I was like, you liar. I healed a lot more than 0. Thank you very much. So yeah, Urn is also a big ticket item for him. One of the big things with his Aghanim Scepter is that you can use most items. The only item you can't use while you're underground is Blink Dagger, but you can use Force Staff while you're underground, and you can use Yule's Scepter. I don't think you can use it on yourself, can you? I've really not tried it.
Wait, use what on yourself?
Yule's Scepter if you're underground. Like,
maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to test it now. But regardless, you can use most of your items while you're underground, including Dagon. As fun as Dagon is, I would not advise it, even if you're playing offlane core Nyx. Again, it's very fun, but, it's not good. Let's see, I'm going to try to use this. Yep, you can use yourself while you're underground. It just looks really funny because you're like a burrowed sack underground that's suddenly in the air. Anyway,
I get described like that a lot.
Yeah, same. So that's Nyx. Yeah, you're right. I don't.
What about his talents, huh?
Talents. Let's see. What talents do I go for? Usually, at level 10. Yeah, at level 10, I would usually go for health. The only time I go spell amp is if the enemy team has like an OD and I'm directly saying I'm going to counter you with mana burn. So yeah, in general, I go 1 time of health. One of the big things to look for with these spell amp talents or these direct amplification to spell damage talents, like Lena has the plus LSA damage, look into how it affects your ability to kill a creep wave. The biggest thing, like with Lena specifically, is you might look at her talent and say, oh, it's just 80 LSA damage. But when that LSA damage makes the difference between you having to sit there and throw out 4 fireballs to kill a wave, or to throw out nothing and just instantly kill a wave, that means your farm speed is going to be going up, probably, 50 GPM at least, just over the course of a game. Probably more than that, actually. That's probably a conservative 50 GPM. It makes a real difference. Whereas if you had like 60 LSA damage and you're still not killing the creeps, then, you wasted a talent, right? So Nyx's 5% spell amp, that's not going to affect your farm speed, right? Because Impale is still going to suck at dealing damage. The only reason you should be getting this is if you want to be countering something with mana burn directly. Health is just always good, especially because your hero doesn't really build health items until Aghanim Scepter. Level 15, I am probably going to be choosing magic resistance instead of impale damage. I don't think the impale damage will make you kill creep waves instantly. It's only going to bring it up to 310, which is not going to be adequate. And 50 damage is not tremendous, I would say. At level 20, you choose between 40 Agi and 120 GPM. I think you choose GPM in basically every game. You don't really need 40 Agi, I'm sorry to say.
Okay.
And at 25, 100% Spike Carapace damage or 40 movement speed, I would choose Spike Carapace damage purely because at this point you have Aghanim Scepter and you're probably not moving around too much. And if you are, you have probably a Force Staff and a Blink Dagger. So I'm not really too concerned with movement speed. As appealing as 40 movement speed would be, I like Carapace damage. The only time I wouldn't get Carapace damage would be like, I don't know, maybe if I'm countering a Bat Rider every fight and it's just kind of pointless, or like if I'm countering something with a Radiance, like, yeah, sure, I dealt 70 damage instead of 35, but that's kind of a rare situation. So in general, as a broad statement, I would say I would be picking 100% Spike Carapace damage at 25.
Yeah.
Anything else? Anything else with Nyx Assassin that we haven't covered?
That's it, man. That's everything.
Yeah. Well, so while we transition to talking about Zeus, one of the big things about Nyx Assassin is he coordinates well with a lot of mid laners, not with a lot of safe laners. When we were going over what we wanted to do for the show, we didn't really have any big safe laners in mind that really worked well with Nyx Assassin. Whereas mid lane, there's a bunch of mid laners that work really well with Nyx Assassin, right? Because Nyx Assassin has this very global gank mentality, and that's why he works really well with Invoker specifically, is definitely the number one mid you want to have with the Nyx Assassin. And then Zeus similarly is incredibly strong with Nyx Assassin because the Nyx Assassin can gank somebody. Frequently, he will not be able to kill them on his own unless it's like a support. And then the Zeus or the Invoker or like a Spectre or, really anybody comes through and closes that deal. Spectre is the less ideal because her ult more of a big commitment compared to a Sunstrike or a Zeus ult that has a much lower cooldown. But you get the idea. Nature's Prophet similarly. Basically anybody that has global efficacy. So yeah, let's talk about Zeus though, shall we? We both play a bit of Zeus. I've been having a lot of success on Zeus recently.
Yep. I like him. It's good.
Yeah. So why did you opt for Zeus with his Nyx Assassin? Have you been playing any Zeus recently?
I played one game recently and it was very easy and I won. So I'm a naturally born Zeus player, I found out.
That's how most Zeus games go for me.
I played it to counter a Necrophos and it kind of worked out. Although the Necrophos built a hood, which I was personally insulted by, but
whatever. That exact situation happened to me. Semi-recently. Yeah, it was one of those sad times.
Yeah, but Zeus does a lot of damage. You're kind of balanced around them having a hood and still killing them. So that was fine. You pick him because, like, Nyx is... In Dota, it's very rare that a hero can solo kill another hero. Like 100 to 0 with no interruption and just, like, a very fast spell combo. And Nyx, especially as a 4, is never going to be able to do that. You are not, outside of like, a 5-position coddle that's extremely destitute and very sad at all times. You're not just gonna, vendetta, impale, mana burn, and get a kill. Like, that's just not gonna happen. But if you have someone else to, give you that little extra push of damage, then, it goes from maybe half a person on a team is killable to you maybe have three targets to kill, just like out of nowhere, out of the blue, at any given time. So yeah, any hero with a global presence like that is wild good for Nyx. And Nyx also, he's good at that.
Yeah, it gives a lot of kill potential in the mid lane too, obviously depending on the matchup, because Nyx is not necessarily the best kill potential mid, right? He's not like a Night Stalker. He provides like a burst of disable and like a little bit of damage. But in general, you want to have a mid laner like a Zeus that can burst provide a ton of damage right away, compared to like a mid who is, I don't know, who's not a good mid kill wise, like a Dragon Knight. I don't know why I keep disparaging Dragon Knight this episode. I'm sorry. Yeah, Viper, like he's okay, but yeah. What? So I think we can both agree that Zeus Ags is like super legit, and you should build it every game.
Zeus Ags is very fun and very good.
It is one of my favorite Ags in the game. I would say it's in my top what 5 strongest Ags.
Nyx Ags, maybe?
Sorry, what was the question?
I said, what Ags do you like more than Zeus Ags? Like Nyx Ags, maybe? I can't think of another one.
Yeah, as far as the fun scale goes, Nyx Ags is maybe the only one that's more fun. Windrunner Ags makes the hero a lot more fun.
Well, Windrunner Ags is more like she's not a hero until she gets it.
Yeah,
Ursi Ags is pretty cool.
Yeah. I like Zeus Ags. In large part, one of the reasons why Zeus Ags is so much fun is just because it adds an entirely new thing to the hero. Whereas other Aghanim Scepter, like Ursa Ags, it just makes you do what you already do a little better, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, on the fun scale, it's definitely up there. I don't know, maybe something's more fun. Like maybe Undying Ags might be more fun.
No.
Yeah.
It's not.
Sand King Ags, that's super fun. But yeah, Nyx Ags and Zeus
Ags. Not
Ags.
even that far. Sand King Ags, I'm fucking over that shit, dude.
Yeah. Regardless, both these Ags are super fun. Zeus Ags, though, is legitimately, I would say, in my top 5 strongest Ags in the game, if I had to make that list.
You don't, but I mean, I appreciate it.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what the other 4 would be. That would be a hard list to make. But I'd actually probably put Nyx Ags in my top 5 as well.
Okay.
But yeah, so Zeus Ags, every game you should be getting it. Do you usually get it first or second?
Usually is a strong word for my Zeus play.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I've played probably only like 3 or 4 Zeus games recently. But recently I've been getting it second or third, depending on if I'm building small items. Generally, I go in for, I usually go for mana boots, bottle, and then, or usually bottle first, then mana boots, and whatever starting items I go. And then I go in for usually either blink or force, and then I will buy, with other supporting items, of course, magic wand, windlace. Then I'll go Ags. Sometimes, though, I have had success building Ags later if I need to build like a Yules as well. But I usually try to have one mobility item first.
This Zeus game that I played, I had to go a very early Yules. I went it before Force Staff or anything like that. I was against it was like Bloodseeker, Bounty Hunter, this axe that kept fucking everyone up. Necrophos and Lion. It was just, I was like, I need this Yules. I kept getting like silenced or ruptured, and then Bloodseeker thing underneath me, and I'm like, gotta go in the sky now.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Yules was great, and the move speed that it gives you is a little bit like it's enough.
Yeah, it makes you more mobile.
You want a mobility item, but it holds you over.
Yeah.
So I went Yules, and then I was doing real good, so I just bought up the Ags, and I got a blink afterwards.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Yeah.
I've also stopped off for Veil if I need armor in a specific game. The other thing that I think is a kind of contentious thing among Zeus builds that I've looked at is building Aether Lens. Personally, I like Aether Lens is really nice to have, but it's very slot expensive in my experience.
Yeah, it's kind of bad.
So I've had some games where I like it. Like my most recent Zeus game, I went bottle, mana boots, windlace, Aether Lens, Ags, Octarine. But in that game, I skipped mobility because the enemy team just, like, I had a bunch of frontliners. I actually don't know why I didn't need mobility this game, but I dominated it, so I guess it was fine. Yeah, I like Aether Lens, but I don't like it enough to warrant actually buying it, if that makes sense. So that's kind of my stance on Aether Lens.
Yeah, and I think Veil is also something I would want to avoid in general. Yeah, it's good to increase your magic damage or whatever, but one of the main reasons people get Veil is that it's something to do with the 2 null talismans you already have from the laning phase, and you buy those 2 null talismans because you want to increase your right click damage so you can, outlast it and deny the other mid laner. But Zeus isn't gonna do that, and he's not trying to do that. So you don't buy a second null talisman. So if you do buy the Veil, it's like, it's not, I'll spend another 1,500 and I have a Veil now. It's like, I got to spend about 2,000 gold to pick up a Veil. And like, that's not really worth it. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And it delays your mobility, and it's like, what you want is mobility and Ags. Like, that's your shit. And as soon as you get that, like, you can farm way better and you won't die because you have mobility. Or you will get more kills because you have mobility. It's not like, oh, I have a Veil now. What was previously unattainable is now within my grasp. Like, that's not a thing Zeus has ever said. That's not in his voice lines when he picks up Veil. He doesn't say that.
That's fair. Yeah. I think that's solid logic. I don't regularly build Veil. I've just... I played it in a few games where I felt like I needed armor. That was the big thing. And I have started games with nulls before also. I find...
Well, you can get 1 null or whatever, but like you don't go 2 nulls on Zeus. Yeah.
No, I definitely don't go 2 nulls early. But yeah, 1 null I have done sometimes. Bloodstone's nice on Zeus as well, but a lot of times I find myself wanting other items earlier, and then it's so late, I don't really want to build a Bloodstone at like 40 minutes. Sometimes I do. But.
Yeah, I see most Bloodstones like after you get the Ags, and you just go Bloodstone next.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like, you don't really regen a lot of mana on Zeus with any of your items. Like, none of them give percentage mana regen.
Yeah.
You have mana boots, right? But that's just like a flat amount, and it's not scaling whatsoever.
Yeah, and you have your level 10 talent.
And like even if you get Force Staff or whatever, that's just int. It's not regen. Int, of course, gives you regen, but kind of in scale with how much mana, it gives you and shit. But, like, Bloodstone, like, you need something that's got, like, a Void Stone or at least a Sage's Mask in it. before you go some other fucking item after your Ags.
Yeah, particularly I've enjoyed Octarine plus Ags because you just constantly are throwing out these Aghanim Scepter nonsenses.
Yeah, that's cool. Still no regen though. It's very sad.
Yeah, it is kind of rough, but you find a way. Life finds a way.
Yeah.
Also, you have your, what is it, level 20 talent, I want to say, that increases the stun time.
Stun?
Yeah. And it doesn't sound like a lot. It's like, 0.5 second, but it makes a real difference.
Yeah, it goes from what point? What does it go to?
I'm looking it up. It goes from...
Okay,
0.4.
Mini stuns are 0.1, right?
No. It's a 0.4 second. Oh, no, that's the cast point. Yeah, it's a mini stun that is just, 0.1 second because that's the standard for mini stuns, right? So then it goes to 0.6, so almost a full second.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you would round it up to a full second, but
I
it's
round
a
up
bit
everything.
over half of a second.
I round up everything.
Yeah. That's an important granularity you got to respect.
Yeah, I would say...
Yeah, so the mini stun is 6 times better.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, 6 times better.
Anyway, enough that it actually is making people upset.
Yeah, enough that...
It's like an Echo Saber. You stun them for an Echo Saber's duration. Good, there you go. That's a real human kind of experience.
It's enough that... Also, cumulatively, over the point of the cloud, it is like an extra, 3 seconds of stun, depending... I don't actually know how many...
Yeah, provided someone lives in it.
Yeah. Well, like, if you're... One of the common things, if you're playing Zeus, is to counterpick a Tinker with the Zeus. And that way he goes somewhere and you just throw your ult on him and he just dies to it. Or he has to leave. But usually he just dies.
Your ult and then your little boy.
Yeah. Well, the big thing is with Zeus specifically is that he blinks into somewhere that's inaccessible. So it's not like he can run away from the Zeus circle. So he blinks in the trees. Yeah. So Tinker blinks in the trees and he's trying to, do all his nonsense. And you just, throw this down on him and he just has to sit there and die. Which is just it's just truly a joy.
And for anyone that doesn't play Zeus and kind of forgot about his Ags, you basically summon a little sigil in the sky, literally anywhere on the map globally, and it just shoots your W down in like a circle.
Yeah.
For fun, it just does that,
oh,
and
boy.
it has a 30-second cooldown, and it's fucking dumb broken.
It's one of the most satisfying abilities in the game, I would say. I've been having a ton of fun with it.
Yeah. So that's every time I play Zeus, I'm like, or every time I have the inkling to play Zeus, because I don't play Zeus really, I'm like, oh yeah, I can buy that one. That's a fun item. Big fan of that.
Yes. Yeah. Man, the scourge of my 3K pubs has been people picking Tinker and my teammates not knowing how to deal with it. So yeah, if you're in 3K and you want to win a game against a Tinker, just pick Zeus. Even a support Zeus. Like support Zeus or offlane Zeus kind of sucks. But if you get an Aghanim Scepter, the enemy mid laner is a garbage hero that's unplayable. So yeah, go for it. Anything else before you close out this portion?
Zeus. I mean, there's
skilling,
and talents.
Yes, skills and talents.
Not that matters to you.
No, I mean, it does. It's just...
you get a point Q, and then you get a point in E for that static field, so you're given the whole zip, zap, zigamaroo. And then you max lightning bolt. And then afterwards, kind of just, you get some static field and arc lightning. You kind of balance between those however you want to. And then you get your ulti. That's Zeus.
Yeah, some people go for a second point arc lightning at like 3 or 4 just to because it
I'm pretty sure people stopped doing that at some point, but I'm not entirely sure.
I'm just looking at a bunch of the 7K games
okay.
and
still doing that.
It's not everybody, but a good amount of people still are. Yeah,
okay.
Actually, most of them are.
Okay,
but
I heard at some point that just people stopped doing that, and I was like, okay,
yeah,
I guess I won't do that
it's
anymore.
a little hard for mana because it increases it by actually it's only 5 mana difference.
Only 5. It's fine.
It does push the lane a bit, but the whole point is that level 1 arc lightning, if you're in the mid lane, because the extra creep got added, it's probably because of the extra creep actually. Because the extra creep got added, you need to have that second point so that it bounces to everything and also the hero. You can still usually bounce it to the hero as long as, of course, one creep is dead, or if you just, get lucky, or if you position it well.
Sound of the summer.
Yeah. So, yeah, some people go in for the second point in Arc Lightning and skip Static Field early. Other times you just go... I almost always go Lightning Bolt. I very rarely get a second point.
What, at level 2?
I go Lightning Bolt whenever I can.
3?
I just go Lightning Bolt, Lightning Bolt, Lightning Bolt, always.
Yeah, I'll probably get the 2-point arc Lightning, because that It's good.
It really does make a difference, and like it's 15 extra damage. It's good.
Yeah, it's solid. Okay, yeah, and then talent wise, I mean, you get the 2 mana regen. You need mana regen. Like you can't fucking not have mana regen. What the fuck? And then at 15, I mean that's kind of like depends on the game, but for the most part, you're gonna get 7 armor. That way, you don't need to build a veil for armor like Ursi did for some fucking reason.
Yes.
And then at level 20, you're going to get the lightning bolt mini stun because that's the reason that's part of the reason your Ags is sick. And we don't care about anything besides the Ags.
Yes.
And then at 25, you're not going to get 200 cast range. Your Ags is already global. Why do you give a shit? No, I mean you might get that. Depends on the game, I guess. But I'd probably get the cast range.
Yeah. I usually pick cast range unless the enemy team has like a bunch of strength heroes, and that 2% stag field damage is actually going to make a real difference. But usually isn't. Usually I want cast range.
Yeah.
And also usually I want cast range. The only time I'd get the 75 arc lightning damage is at level 20 is if I was like, if we're getting pushed real hard by like a team that has like an Enigma and a Nature's Prophet or something.
Prophet.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we're against that, maybe I'll go it. But.
Yeah, but that's such a weird niche situation. Yeah, I wouldn't bother. So yeah, that's Zeus.
Great.
Okay, so let's hop into our game, shall we? And that will be on youtube.com/.ptv1, and we will be back momentarily. All right, hello everybody, we're back. We have just completed our game. It was an interesting game. It was a long game.
Yeah.
Have we been winning recently? Did it break a win streak?
Yeah,
I can't remember.
It did break a win. It did break the wind streak.
Yes. It wasn't a bad game though. It was just a weird game. So team comp wise, the enemy team had a safe lane Venomancer. They had a mid lane Templar Assassin. They had an aggro tri-lane of Anti-Mage, Crystal Maiden, and Clockwork. 4 Clockwork, etc., etc., etc. They had a weird laning situation that was kind of unexpected, but we'll go into it later. Our team had a mid lane Zeus and off lane solo Razor that randomed, and then our safe lane was Weaver, Nyx Assassin, and Skywrath Mage, with a bit of roaming from both the Skywrath and myself. Mostly the Skywrath roaming. He went bottom with the Razor a bit, and he went mid briefly. I went mid briefly, but the TA was not particularly killable in a lot of situations. I think we killed her, once?
No.
Yeah, I think we killed her at one point. Maybe that was like briefly after the laning phase.
That must have been after, because the laning phase was essentially just her having refraction and denying creeps.
Yeah, so that let's talk a little about the matchup, because that's historically one of the worst Zeus matchups. If not, well, I wouldn't call it the worst Zeus matchup, but it's up there. I'd say bottom 5, worse? Bottom 3, like Viper.
Razor, Viper, and then what beyond Viper?
I think only Viper comes to mind.
Yeah, Viper and then TA.
So yeah,
can't think of anything worse.
Yeah, the matchup is horrible because of refraction, like you said. But UCS decently well. Like you outranged her, and then once she got traps, that was really what spelled doom for you, basically, right?
Yeah, like I was doing well up until about 6 minutes, and then it was like she hit 6 before me because she denied a number of creeps, because she can do that, and I definitely cannot. Yeah. And then I didn't really notice. I didn't press W and click the ground on my face. I just kind of got slow, and then she wasn't. She walked up to me, and I said, "Hello, ma'am," and then she didn't respond back. She just kind of threw her mind blade into my mind, and then I died. Rude.
Yeah. It's one of those matchups where like you can't blame a guy for losing. Like it's just a losing matchup.
Yeah, it's a bad matchup. It's not my fault.
So, as much as that was a terrible matchup, we did get a lot of farm out of our offlane because it was a 1v1 of Razor versus Venomancer, and the Razor came out decently ahead. Venomancer got some stuff, but Razor was definitely getting more than an offlane Razor ever should, I think.
Let me ask Dota Buff who won that lane. Razor won the lane according to Dota Buff.
Yeah, let's see. Last hits at 4 minutes. Razor, or no.
At 4 minutes? What an arbitrary metric.
Yeah, I don't know. At 12? Why did 10. Razor not have any? Oh, no. Razor had 60 at 12, and Veno had 13. Or no, Veno had 26 at 12. So yeah, Razor was doing quite a bit better, and I think the Sky with roaming helped a lot in the anti-Veno matchup world.
Sure.
The off-lane, tri-lane forced a lot of aggression, and it definitely... We were fighting constantly, but we were coming out ahead. I think at one point, kill-wise, it was like 5-1 in favor of our team, and the AM was not getting great.
I don't care about what happened in this game. I want to know facts about heroes, and I don't want to hear about your experience playing a pub.
Okay, all right. Well, the pub informs the whole thing.
But like,
okay,
those little anecdotes don't.
Okay, fine, all right. Well, then let's go more grand scheme. Why did we lose this game? Purely a comp thing?
It was a shit Zeus game. It was the worst Zeus game I could have gotten. Not actually, but
it was close.
It was a Viper with a Piper. There was a TA mid. That's not good. There was an anti-mage. And a fucking Clockwork. Like, what the... I mean, the Clockwork's not too bad, but I have to build a 4-staff because of that. It was a shitty game, and I built bad items, and everything sucked.
Yeah, it was not an easy game, that's for sure.
We were winning for a large portion of the time, and I wasn't really taking the game very seriously because I was Zeus. You can't take the game seriously if you're Zeus, and I was having a ball.
Yeah. But,
like, I mean, we had it within our power to win that game. It's just our cores were fucking stupid as shit.
Yeah, our Weaver did not do a physical damage build and never built a Desolator.
And a Yule's at some point. Like, we lost. We have Radiance, Yule's, Weaver. That's what happens when you have Radiance, Yule's, Weaver. You lose. That's the plan.
And like Razor was pretty dominant in some fights around the like 30-minute mark, and even before like 20 to 30 minutes, he was really snowballing, and we took a bunch of tier 2s. But then at a certain point, Razor just kind of fell off, just through the nature of the hero compared to an anti-mage and a TA.
Yeah, at some point, you realize that your offlaner doesn't have a disable, and then you're like, oh, fuck, we lose.
Yeah, and at a certain point, they both had BKBs on their cores and on Crystal Maiden, although I honestly don't know if Crystal Maiden ever actually used her BKB. Yeah, and that spelled doom for the vast majority of our damage, including, of course, the bulk of Weaver's damage through Radiance.
Yes, Sky could do nothing, Weaver... Not even Weaver's 75 damage from the Yule's fall down could kill anyone. I certainly was fucking worthless after that point.
Yeah, and I was similarly worthless.
Yeah, so we lost. And then they just kind of split pushed us to death. We could kind of win fights, honestly. It was just like, we don't have a disable, and they have BKBs, so we lose.
And we can't high ground. Yeah, like...
Because a lot of times, because we just have, we don't have, our 3 is a fucking Razor, so we can't fucking do anything. Ugh.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times when you're just getting split pushed a lot, you will just say, all right, we just need to push down a tower and just commit and then TP back if we need to. But the problem is we couldn't do that against like Veno wards and Clockwork spam and CM spam. And like you said, since we had no initiation, we had no way to force a thing. We just kind of had to walk at the tower repeatedly and get chipped down and then die. And so... we were screwed. Like, we missed our window, and we missed it for a variety of different reasons, but in the moral of the story is we missed our window, and that's why we lost, basically.
All right, like, well, how does that apply to our heroes, huh?
Our heroes. So, you don't want to go super late as a Zeus in a game where the enemy team has tanky cores that are mobile, and especially build BKBs, right? Because you're banking a lot on burst and on sustained damage in AoE, right, through your Aghanim Scepter. But when their cores are a Hurricane Pike TA and a AM with Blink Dagger, they can get out of your circle.
Blink Dagger, Sam?
Sorry, an AM with Blink.
Thank you.
And so they can escape your AoE circle. Similarly with me, I mean, I'm all about AoE control, but in a lot of these later engagements, I would be burrowed in mid, trying to disable, and then they would just dodge and go top. And it doesn't really matter what I do. Like, I don't have the mobility necessary to get there.
No, you really don't.
I was also pretty poor, specifically with the Nyx Zeus combo. I was not really able to roam and gank like would have been nice. Specifically, like, this was just a bad Nyx game on top of that.
Nyx is good against... has refraction, and how do you gank that with a Nyx?
Yeah, and anti-mage is so, like, hard to kill.
It doesn't take magic damage, and we are 90% magic damage.
Yeah, and Clockwork's very difficult to kill. Any builds Force Staff naturally. Venomancer rushed a Hood. It was just a game where the only person I feasibly could have killed would be CM, and she was way far back. And really, if you commit a whole bunch of stuff to kill CM, okay, I guess so. I mean, it's not really a huge thing. So generally, Nyx is a safe pick because a lot of the common cores a lot of the common cores are int cores, right? But in this game, they picked 3 Agi cores and a Crystal Maiden and a Clockwork. So
yeah, that wasn't great.
Looks like it's not going to pan out. And
no.
stuns are always good, right? It wasn't an absolutely terrible Nyx game. It was just a combination of not only was it a bad Nyx game, but it was also a bad Razor game. And Weaver made himself have a bad game through virtue of his
Weaver
build.
chose to kind of play into every weakness that he has.
Weaver's all right.
Or that he could create for himself.
Yeah, so all around, not a stellar situation to be in.
Yeah, but we did fine, all things considered. I mean, I think these heroes are fine together, and if you were actually able to go mid against a nice person, then that would have been good. We just, really, we didn't get to do our plan, and we did it into the worst possible thing imaginable.
Yeah, essentially, this is one of those losses where if it wasn't a VOD, Prod and I not me, because I picked second, I want to say, but from the get-go, we're this is a bad Zeus game, but it's you got to do it for the show.
First pick, what was the first pick?
I think the first pick was Clockwork, and the second pick was Veno. I actually don't know.
It was the Clockwork, and then I'm pretty sure TA was second, and that was when I was like, God damn it, this is bad. This is a bad thing.
Yeah, I think you're right.
AM was last pick, and we were just like, fuck.
Yeah, AM was definitely last pick. It was pretty rough.
So you know what? Good idea, but maybe we need to test it in a game where we're not picking into counters.
Yeah, I would say if you're...
And we actually have an offlaner. Because, we took the first Rax, that game was winnable if we didn't have a fucking 3 Razor.
Yeah,
all things considered, the game was very winnable.
I think if the win condition is to have a combination of both a three that is not a Razor, like an actual, a Centaur or a Magnus or something, and a 1 that builds physical damage, because... The only reason we took that Rax is because Razor dealt all our physical damage. So if we replaced Razor with an actual offlaner and we still had a we still had a Weaver that built into magical damage and utility or whatever the heck this build is supposed to be. Just for context, the game was 62 minutes long. At 62 minutes, Weaver's items were Radiance, Heart, Force Staff, Butterfly, Yule's Gem. You don't salvage that.
That's not so good. That's not good.
Yeah, you don't really salvage that.
That's a bad build, I think.
We would have had to switch both our 3 and our 1.
That's a bad build.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's not that.
I'm going to see what talents he got. Let's see here. He only got a talent at level 13. Okay, got 6 strength instead of the Sakuchi damage. He's not committed. And then at 16, he gets his next talent. He gets the 7 stats. That's good. And then he gets 200 health instead of 15 agi. That's brave. That's 10 strength over 15 agi. What the fuck? And then at 25, we get magic resistance. That's probably good this game. Wait, no, it's not. What the fuck? There's no magic
I skipped
damage
my
this
magic
game.
resistance talent.
I mean,
because of how bad.
There's Veno, but whatever.
But the Veno sucked. Honestly, the Veno did not do anything well except for place wards.
Yeah, this Weaver kept dying he'd get bloodthorned and then be why didn't I build any items to help me deal with this? I know I'll Yules myself. And then they all group around him and just hold his bug body down and dissect him. And he's like, "Argh." That's specifically the noise he made.
Yeah, it's accurate.
Thank you.
Yeah, I skipped my magic resistance talent. In most games, I would go for the magic resistance talent instead of 50 impale damage.
You would.
But in this game, I went for 175 health, 50 impale damage, and then 120 GPM, and I never got to level 25. So I would have... In this game, I would have picked Spike Carapace damage, just on the off chance I reflect a TA bolt or something.
Yeah, you reflected a nice TA meld strike, but she had refraction on, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, it really sucks playing Nyx against TA, I'll be honest.
Yeah,
although,
I mean, play this game
it does
again,
take off refraction at least, but...
I would not have built a null talisman. I would have gone opening pieces for a soul ring and finished the soul ring, and then I would have gotten my arcanes, which is what I did, And then the Force Staff for sure. Probably get like a Windlace and I got a Raindrop, but I'd probably add a Windlace as well. And then after the Force Staff, get the Ags. That's good. And then I don't think I should have got a Bloodstone. It was really attractive. I was smitten by the idea of a Bloodstone. For the regen, the pure unadulterated regen it provided me was something to really behold.
Yeah.
But you know what else? It didn't do a lot besides that. So maybe just get a Void Stone and save 5,000 gold if that's really what I'm interested in. I wouldn't actually do that. That's a terrible idea. That's why it's a comparison that I'm making. I should have just got the Octarine like God intended.
Yeah, my itemization was a bit slow since we weren't doing that like aggressive, or we weren't able to do that aggressive gank stuff. I went Boots of Speed, or I went Magic Mana Boots with
Magic
Windlace and a stick. Then I went Force Staff, Aghanim Scepter, Aether Lens. I would have liked to build a Blink Dagger, but I had no way of getting to 2250, so instead I was just like, we're now... The phase of the game where I would have liked to have a Blink Dagger kind of ended because after I got my Aghanim Scepter, they were pushing super hard. So I said, I really need to commit to just defending base and being a turret. So Aether Lens was preferable.
Okay.
Ideally, I would have had Aether Lens, Force Staff, Aghanim Scepter, and a Blink. Or Blink, Force Staff, Aghanim Scepter in a reasonable amount of time. So yeah, it was just kind of unfortunate that I got forced into that avenue. Although Aether Lens is quite good, especially once you have Aghanim Scepter. It basically lets you defend an entire lane, lengthwise. It's stellar. Like, it's one of those items that just works really well together.
Does your Ags change your mana burn at all?
My Ags, it increases the range.
Oh, that's it?
Well, I mean, it increases range.
That's
and
the only thing it does?
I mean, now I need to look up exactly what it does.
No, I don't know. That sounds fine.
Well, I actually do want to look up exactly what it does. It's one of those items that I just buy because I know it's really good, but I don't think too much.
Specifics.
Let's see.
And what's it do, bud?
What does it do? So Aghanim Scepter, it gives you a ton of regen, both mana and HP. It reduces incoming damage by 40% when you're burrowed.
Yep.
It changes Spike Carapace to be AoE above you.
Yep.
And
stun.
Impale travels faster and
range.
has 450 additional range, and the cooldown gets reduced to 7 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
It does not change mana burn at all. It just lets you do it, from invisible.
Range?
It doesn't.
Sam?
No. Nope. Yep, that's how that is.
Gosh. All right.
Yeah, it was an alright game. It just, we missed our window and we had poor itemization. I would advise... I would say if it's a game where you're picking either one of these heroes as a reactionary pick to the enemy team, like, oh, they picked OD, I'm going to pick Nyx, then picking a Zeus is strong. And similarly, if you're picking the Zeus specifically for a matchup, then having a Nyx on your team is a good asset. But it is not one of those combos, as we saw in this game, that you can just blindly go into a game and win with. I think that's the grand, that's the point, as far as I'm concerned. Any other closing comments, Proud? Perfect. Me neither. All right. So let's plug it up, shall we? You can find us at Ursinity, at Proud Dota, or Discord is discord.gg/.p. You can find us at defensepations.com, patreon.com/defensepations. Get all our Patreon exclusive episodes. In-houses Wednesday nights, run through Discord. So go to Discord if you want to get the info. They are 9 Eastern Wednesdays, I believe, going for, what is it, like the next month and a half, I want to say, until American Thanksgiving. I believe Canadian Thanksgiving ended recently, so happy Thanksgiving, Canada. Other plugs, shall we? I think we're fine. Support us, iTunes reviews, those help us and all that. Yep. Remember, if you're going to pick Nyx and Zeus, don't pick an NCA.